We're now in reading Keter Shem Tov, the Minagim before Pesach, and he asked this question: מדוע רבותינו ז"ל הקדישו הסאה לאסור אכילת מצה בערב פסח? לומר כאילו בועל ארוסתו בבית חמיב, ומהו היחס ביניהם? There is a custom, we know of this practice, of not eating matzah on Erev Pesach. So really the question is it a practice or law? Is it halakha? Even if it's halakha, it's obviously not biblical halakha, because there's no indication in the Torah that one should not eat matzah on the day before Pesach. So it must have come from rabbinical sources, and the rabbis do talk about that. But his question is not why is it not only forbidden, but the rabbis used a very harsh language when describing it. They said, if one eats matzah on Erev Pesach, that is as if he had relationships with his betrothed, with his wife before she is fully married to him. Meaning, Arusato bebet Hamim, in her parents' house. At the time, they had, unlike we have today, the wedding is all one ceremony. But we actually do two sets of blessings. The first set of two blessings is called Birkot Erusin. The next set is called Birkot Nisuin. So there's a betrothal or engagement and marriage. In the past, in the time of the Mishnah, they used to get engaged, do the ceremony, say the barachot, whatever, and then wait for about a year until they consummate the marriage. Now, during that year, the man and woman are tied to each other in this bondage, in this agreement of erusin, but they cannot be with each other physically. Sexual relationship is forbidden. Yeah. That's why we say in the bracha, Asher.
But even this that's not from the Torah.
No, that's not from the Torah. No, that's how the rabbis established the right. That's how the rabbis established the ceremony. In the Torah, Rambam says you meet with someone or the shidduch is discussed.
No sexual reason.
Right, it's very difficult for people. So for whatever reason they did that. Maybe they wanted to see if they really love each other. But throughout this year, they would go and visit each other. She would go to his parents' house. He would go to her parents' house. They would send gifts to each other. Maybe that was their idea of how to establish the relationship between the families. And there is a certain wisdom there where they thought maybe let's see if they could foster love between them before they have children and get into a marriage that they cannot get out of with children. Maybe that was the idea. However, sexual relationship was forbidden, and the rabbis, even though technically she is about to be his wife, so they are designated for each other. But the rabbis built it into the bracha to say asar lanu et arusot, that we are forbidden to be with the one who is engaged to us. Only when it's by chuppah v'kiddushin, the final stage, that is allowed. So of course it was frowned upon when a couple had relationships before the marriage. It's not exactly premarital sex, it's after erusin, before nisuin. So the rabbi said, one who eats matzah erev Pesach, if you eat matzah on the day before Pesach, it's as if one had this kind of relationships. So this is really heavy, right? It's a heavy accusation. It's not like saying, you don't have. So on its face, you would think that the reason for that comparison is that it's a question of patience. If you're going to wait, you're going to do it in the permitted legal way. So have patience, control your desire. The same with matzah. Control your desire and don't eat. Now, to add to that, we'll get back to this comparison. But the Rif, Rabbi Yitzhak Alfasi, and the Rosh Rabbeinu Asher say that not only it's forbidden, if one did that, he is going to get lashes. Makat mardut. And makat mardut means that it's the lashes are not prescribed in the Torah, but rather it's a rabbinical decree. The rabbis made the decree of not eating matzah on Erev Pesach, just as they made the decree not to have relationships with the arusa. And in both cases, one will get makat mardut, will get lashes. In the Rambam, in Maimonides, you find three more words. He says, "Makinot o makat mardut, ad shetetzeh nafsho." They beat him, with lashes until he dies. So, wow, capital punishment for wait, don't. No. So, and Rabbi Gagin quotes another commentator, Rivash, Rabbi Yitzhak Bar Sheshat, who was originally from Spain, but fled to Algeria in the 1300s when the first wave of expulsion from Spain took place. Was one of the greatest scholars of Spain and then North Africa. And he says, Rivash writes, "En b'shum makom b'over al divrei chachamim shemakim oto ad shetetzeh nafsho." There is no such case of one transgressing a rabbinical prohibition and getting lashes to that extent. So he says, how come he failed to mention this specific halakha in Maimonides? The answer is, to answer both why the Rivash omitted it and the Rambam wrote it, is that in the original manuscripts of Maimonides, those words, ad shetetzeh nafsho, until he dies, do not appear. Probably someone who copied the manuscript, because this is how it worked back then. You didn't have the printing press or Xerox, of course, so you had to copy by hand. And since in other places the formula makino to ad shetetzeh nafsho, the lashes could lead even to death, that copier, that person filled in from memory, made a mistake, and that got into print. God forbid, if people would have followed that, they would kill an innocent person. So in the current accurate versions of Maimonides, the Frankel edition, those words really are not there. So Rabbi David Abu Darham. Now let's go back to the question of the prohibition and why they compare it to having sexual relationship. Rabbi David Abu Darham was a Spanish scholar who wrote about explained all the minhagim, all the practices, trying to give reason for them. So he says, why did they say that? They said mishum shekala belo bracha asura leba'ala kenida. The rabbi said that before the wedding, before the sheva berachot that you say under the chuppah, a woman cannot be with her husband. So he says, Av matzah ena muteret le'achel ela b'sheva berachot. It says, just as you have 7 brachot under the chuppah for the wedding, right? We call it sheva brachot. Also, to eat matzah, you have to say sheva brachot, which are birkat hayom. We say the bracha mekadesh Yisrael mazemanim, and kiddush hayom borei pri hagefen, shehayanu borei pri adama, birkat hayayin, and amotzi lechol matzah. 7 blessings. He says, okay, if you're already counting all the brachot in the Haggadah, Rabbi Gagin says, what about netilat yadayim? What about Ga'al Israel? He says you try to work hard to get to the number 7, but you omitted some brachot. But maybe if you add the 2 other brachot that you have Birkat Erusin, then you get to 9. Okay, it doesn't work well. Another commentator said that, like I told you before, that he cannot control his desire, cannot wait until the Nisuim. Then other Hachamim, Rabbeinu Yeruham, one of the early Hachamim of Provence, כתב, יש נוהגים שלא לאכול חזרת קודם הפסח. Some people don't eat horseradish before Pesach, so they will save the taste. So other people understood that you don't eat matzah because you want to save the taste the first time you taste it for Erev Pesach. So they said, let's not eat horseradish. And today, over centuries, I know that some people would not eat celery Erev Pesach, right? But if you really extend it, so don't eat anything that is associated. Don't eat honey, don't eat lettuce, don't eat hard-boiled eggs. Where do you stop? Also, where do you stop? If you say that you want to savor and save the taste for Erev Pesach, why not extend it for the whole week? Why not start from Rosh Chodesh, which some people do? Why not 30 days? Maybe the whole year you should not eat matzah. So the reason, now I'm going away from the Keter Shem Tov because he doesn't discuss that. This is my interpretation, that I think what is the real reason for not eating matzah on Erev Pesach? What is the real reason? So in the Talmud Masechet Pesachim, in chapter 5, the Gemara speaks about different customs of different locations in Eretz Israel. And the Gemara says that in the north of Israel, people did not work on Erev Pesach. And in the center, in Yehuda, people did work on Erev Pesach until midday. That was related, and I think we spoke about it before, that was related to the way the northern Jews and the Jews of Yerushalayim understood the Hurban, the destruction, and their education as well. The people of Jerusalem were more Hellenized, more modern in their thinking, and they processed the destruction of the temple and said, let's move to the next phase. The temple is not going, maybe it was also, the shock was so great that they said, if we lost it, we lost everything. We have to live in a world without a temple. The people of the north couldn't let go of it. They were more pious. There are many, they're called Hasidim, they were more pious, they were more devout, and they felt that they have to behave as if the Bet HaMikdash is still there. For that reason, they wouldn't work on Erev Pesach, because Erev Pesach was the day of the Korban, the day when you bring the sacrifice. Whereas the people in Yehuda said, oh, we don't have sacrifice today, we could eat, we could do work at least until midday. Another difference or we could say a movement that started, was the people said, now that we don't have a Korban, why do we have to wait until nightfall? The Torah says that you have to sacrifice Korban Pesach, you have to do the Shechita after sunset. And in the time of the temple, people would gather in Yerushalayim. You would you start traveling a week before Pesach. You come there, you set your place, your picnic, or a tent, or you find somewhere to stay. You prepare everything for the meal. All that's missing is the lamb. You take it to the temple. Thousands of people are waiting at the Temple Mount to do the Shechita. They do the Shechita, they go back to their locations. And so just think about it from a logistic point of view, it's a nightmare. How long does it take for everybody to go back and do the Shechita? Because you do the Shechita in the temple. So they would have to wait maybe an hour after sunset until everybody settles down, and they could do because they would do the meal and the Hallel together. The Gemara says, Kezait, Pisha, Umarora, Ufaka Agra Mehalela. Once they eat the kazait, the piece of lamb meat with the maror, the roofs would explode from the singing of the Hallel. So it was a beautiful, beautiful event, beautiful occasion. Now that we don't have the temple, people said, why should we wait till so late? Wherever we set shop, right? We have a picnic. Let's start eating matzah and start the seder b'od yom. We can start after Hatzot. We can start at midday and run to the night, have a nice party. That was a trend that the rabbis were very afraid of. The Chachamim said, well, if you do that, you're going to forget about Pesach. You're going to it's not going to be similar to the original Pesach where you do it at night. So they wanted to make sure that you only start the meal and the Haggadah at night. And this is really sort of legislated and is written in the Haggadah, where it says, Yachol mi be'od yom, v'igata lebincha b'yom ha'u lemor. We read this in the Haggadah. You should tell your son on that day and say this. So they say, Yachol mi be'od yom. If you say b'yom ha'u, does it mean mi be'od yom when it's still day? Talmud lomar ba'avur zeh. You should tell your son because of this, of the Pesach and the Matzah. Lo amarti ela b'sha'ah shePesach matzah u'maror munachim lefanecha. You can only tell him the story when the Pesach, the Korban, the Matzah, and the Maror are in front of you.
But there are those also Yom because it's considered Yom.
Right. No, but those
it's considered day.
Yom starts that night.
Yes. No, but that's why they say mi be'od yom, b'yom, right. So it was all about technical arguments. The other ones would say, but the other ones would say, those who wanted to do it early, said b'sha'ah Pesach. If you have the sacrifice, once you don't have the sacrifice, you don't need it. And actually there was even people who took it to a greater extreme saying, we don't have to eat matzah at all. because the whole mitzvah is to eat Pesach, Matzah u'maror. If you don't have one, you don't have the others. And the rabbis had to argue to show that you still do Matzah u'maror, you still do it at night, even though you're missing the central element. So it was a serious ideological fight, not just halakha. The fight was, are we preserving our practices in a way that resembles the way that it was in the temple, or are we going to let go and forget the temple? So, who were the people who were pushing to start earlier? The people of Yehuda. The same people who cared less about the character of Pesach. The people of Yehuda said, we could eat earlier. The people of Galil said, we will wait till the night. Now, the rabbis wanted to make sure that everybody follows their decree, so they use harsh language. This is something that parents also do. You know, you want to make your kid follow what you told him or her. Some parents do. You have to insult. You have to create a sense of guilt. You have to scare them. That's what they think. Okay, the rabbis took this strategy in this point because probably the pushback was so powerful. They said eating matzah on Erev Pesach. And it's not about eating matzah. Now you have to realize, if you just ate matzah for breakfast on Erev Pesach, no harm done. If you even ate matzah after midday, at the time of the rabbis, you have nothing to eat at home, you have matzah, because this is the local bread. You put some, maybe you dip it in yogurt, there's something like that they have, and you eat, no harm done. When they say Ochel matzah be'erev Pesach, they meant if you sit down to do the seder be'erev Pesach, before it's nighttime, this is as if you had relationships with your engaged, with your arusa before the night. Now, why did they pick this one specifically? Guess what? That was also a divide in Israel. There were people who were very careful with this prohibition of not having a relationship before the marriage, and there were people who didn't care. Who were these people? Along the same lines. Bagalil, the people of the Galilee, respected the prohibition. They did the engagement, they did the betrothal, and they would wait a year, no relationships, because they were more pious and more religious. The people of Yehuda, Hachamim said, the rabbi said in Masechet Kiddushin, they say, if the engaged couple spend time in her parents' house, most probably they slept together. Why? Because they are used to, they don't care about these prohibitions. So the rabbis killed two birds in one shot. They rebuked the people of Yehuda for not being able to contain themselves and wait until the marriage, and they also fortified the prohibition of not eating matzah. That's where it came from. Now, what happened since then? Two things happened. In marriage, the rabbis realized it doesn't work. You could rebuke people as much as you want, but you cannot stop people from being together, especially after they got betrothed and they had the whole celebration. They said, you know what? Let's minimize the waiting time between the engagement and the marriage. So how long is that period today? Depends on the rabbi. Depends on how long is this, and also the cantor. So the cantor and the rabbi. When I do a wedding, when I perform a wedding, I don't want to take too much time. The bride and groom, it's their time, and if anyone wants to give speeches or they have enough time later on during the dinner. So my Dvar Torah is about 3 minutes, and between the engagement, which is the first 2 brachot, and the marriage, which is the last 7 brachot, they're about 5 minutes. There's a 5-minute waiting period, and usually they could hold themselves. And other chuppah that I've seen is sometimes between the two, 25 minutes, 45 minutes, which is really Torah Tzibur. It's difficult. I wish the rabbis who conduct the chuppah would be able to see from the back, maybe if someone had a camera and they could see the audience. Because 10 years ago, when I would go to weddings like that, not 10, 15 years ago, weddings like that, they would take time. People would sit, a little bored, maybe someone would pull a book. Today, 90% of the guests in such long weddings, you know what they do? They're on the iPhones. They're watching the game, they're placing beds, they're checking the stock market.
They go have sexual relations right after, even with
No, they wait. They wait, right. Anyway, but today, so in terms of Arusato bevet hamiv, that doesn't exist anymore. The rabbis got rid of their decree. They just made the Irusin and the Kiddushin next to each other with 5 minutes waiting period. And in terms of starting the Seder midday, nobody even thinks about that. Everybody knows you wait till nighttime to do. We've pushed it further in than the rabbis wanted. The Shulchan Aruch, the Tur, says you could start the Haggadah mishetachshach. You could start the Haggadah early, so you could say Hamotzi mishetachshach. Like earliest time to start the Seder is time it in that way that you say Hamotzi when it's dark, when darkness falls, which is 35 minutes after Shki'ah.
Whereas everybody else says Kiddush has to be.
Right. No, then they say, no, the first Kiddush should be then.
Because they consider Motzi like Kiddush.
Well, this is definitely not the intention of the tool. That's not what the tool said. Right. They changed it. Anyway, since we don't have that, eating matzah by Erev Pesach doesn't fall really under this category of the prohibition. So usually we could hold ourselves. It's not a big problem. The problem is when Erev Pesach falls on Shabbat, and then you want to eat the meals of Shabbat, but you have no matzah. Simple solution is just eat matzah. But that is the background of the custom. That's where it came from. Baruch Adonai le'olam. Amen ve'amen.